Hello, welcome to another pottery tutorial. My name is Madeline. This is my studio, and today I'm talking everything handles. There are three main ways to make handles that I personally know of. The first and most common being pulling handles. Pulling handles is a great way to make handles. It's definitely a method that you should learn how to do if you haven't already. And basically it's taking a chunk of clay and pulling down on it with wet hands, as slippery as possible, until you get like a long handle-shaped piece, and then you just pinch it off and keep going. It seems really simple, and in theory it is, but it does take quite a bit of practice to get the hang of it. An alternative method to pulling handles would be using one of these tools. This is a handle tool, and it's really simple. You just use a block of clay. You pick which side you want to use, which width of a handle you'd like to do, and then you just drag it along the top of the clay really slowly until you've got your handle. And this just kind of pre-shapes the handle for you. But I will say this method is a little bit tricky, and it's hard to get really consistent handles with. Definitely not my preferred method. A third alternative way to make handles is by using one of these guys. This is called a extruder, specifically a handle extruder. And this is my preferred method of making handles. It makes for really consistent handles, it makes for fast handles, and I just want everyone to know how to do it this way. If you don't like pulling handles, or if you're having a hard time getting consistent results with pulling handles, this is going to be your best friend. I'm sure there are tons of different brands of handheld extruders that you can buy online. Just do a quick Google search and I'm sure you'll find one. If you want to try out the same one that I use here, which I highly recommend, I will leave a link to it in the description below. Now that you know a few different methods of handle making, stay tuned because I'm going to show you exactly how I use my preferred method of making handles using the extruder. And I'm also going to show you how I attach my handles to my mug bodies. So let's go. Before I jump in on how to use the handle extruder, let's talk about the die. This is the metal component that sits inside of the lid, and basically you just push the clay through this shape in order to make your handle. There's many different types of die shapes and sizes. You can find which one works for you and gets the results that you want. There's also dies that can make hollow pieces of clay, which is kind of cool. There's like so many things you can do with handheld extruders, but today I'm going to show you, using my favorite handle die, how to make handles. Supplies you'll need to make your handles are clay, water, and a sponge, a round thingy that you will use to shape your handles, potter's knives, handle extruder, and optionally, some oil. First, take your clay and wire off a decent amount. It's always easier to start with more than you'll need than less. Then you'll want to wedge your clay thoroughly to get out any air bubbles. Check out my previous video on throwing a mug for a more in-depth tutorial on wedging. Once your clay is wedged, you'll start by rolling it towards you with the goal of making a long log shape. You'll want to keep rolling it like this until the log of clay will fit inside your extruder tube. Once your log is the desired shape, you'll cut off the ends and prepare your extruder. Take the lid off by screwing off the black part and removing the die. Then you're going to push the lever down and pull back towards you on the handle. Pop your clay log into the tube and smash it down as much as you can. Then just cut off any excess clay and put it aside for later use. Here's where the oil will come in handy. I like to use mineral oil and apply it to both sides of the die. This just helps the clay move through the die smoothly without as much catching. Put the die on top of the clay and then screw the lid back on. Make sure the tube is straight and that the die is centered. You'll then want to press the handle as many times as needed to get rid of the air until you feel it start pushing the clay out. Once you're ready to extrude the clay, place the top of the extruder on the table and start pressing the clay out while simultaneously dragging the extruder back to produce one long handle. Once you reach the edge of the table, then just pinch off the clay and start the process over again until you run out of clay. The key to getting nice, usable handles is to move the extruder back while pushing the clay out to avoid any bends or warping in the clay. This may take some getting used to, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. Once you've used up all the clay, then pop the lid off, reload, and keep going. A trick to get the lid off is to press the lever to release the air pressure, then the lid will come off easily. Press the handle a couple times to push the clay out and then clean it out. You'll want to do this every time to avoid any clay building up in the bottom and then drying. It's a total headache to deal with, so don't forget this step. Also, don't forget to put any excess clay aside to be reused for later. I'll then go over the backs of the handles with a sponge to smooth them out. I like to extrude my handles out with the front facing down, but you can do the opposite. Just flip the die upside down in the extruder. You'll want to identify any cracks or holes now before cutting out your handles and cut them so that you know where they are and that they won't be used in your handle. You'll also want to cut off any of the ends that also won't be used on your handle. To cut out my handles, I'll start by cutting the first one to my desired length, and then I use this one as a guide to cut out the rest of them so that they are uniform in length. I'll remove any excess pieces along the way and save them for later use. Do this until you've used up all of the clay, and then load up your extruder and do the process all over again. Here's where your round thingy comes in handy. Mine is literally just a piece of cardboard that I put some plastic over. Here I'm flipping the handles and smoothing them out on the front side and then draping them over the round thingy where I'll leave them to dry and shape. If you find any handles that are like this and have a ton of cracks or holes, then just scrap it. It won't be worth trying to save. Once I've filled up the round thingy, I drape more handles on top of the first layer and so on. Then I'll place it somewhere to dry a bit so the clay holds its handle shape a little more. Supplies you'll need for attaching handles are your handles, water and a sponge, potter's knife, a scoring tool like this one, or you could just use a needle tool, slip, and optionally a stamp of your choosing. I also like to use a piece of foam with a towel over it to have a nice, soft, cleanable surface to work on. Grab your handle and make sure it's dried out enough to the point where it can be handled without losing its shape and be easily messed up. Go over it with the sponge to smooth it out, cut off the end to make sure it's nice and straight, and do the initial bend into its shape and set it aside. Grab your mug and then put the handle up against the mug to figure out where you'll want to attach it. Use your knife to mark where the top and bottom parts of the handle will be attached. This will help you later when you score it. Carefully peel off the handle of the mug and set it aside. Use your scoring tool to score where the handle will attach, add your slip, and then score once more for good measure. Now we're going to score and slip the handle. We will be scoring the top of the outside and the bottom of the inside of the handle. No need to add slip to the handle because you've already added it to the mug. This is an important step not to skip, as the scoring and slipping will ensure your handle adheres to the mug properly. Place the top outside of the handle directly onto the top scored spot of the mug, and then carefully flip the handle and drape it over your hand so you can easily reach the underside. Take your stamp and gently press it into the handle, then press down the edges and use your sponge to clean up the corners. Then you'll flip the handle down so that the bottom inside is placed against the bottom scored spot on the mug, and then repeat the process. Make sure the handle is right where you want it and lined up before stamping. If you don't want to use the stamp method, then just do the same process but smooth the clay into the mug to make a seamless attachment. Adjust your handle shape until it sits how you like, bending it and pushing it and doing whatever you need to do to get it to be the perfect shape. Let me show you that process again from a different angle and sped up. Smooth out the handle and then place it on the mug where you want to attach it. Use your potter's knife to mark where you're going to score. Score and slip the mug. Then score and slip the handle. Place the top outside of the handle onto the top score of the mug, flip the handle and stamp it. Clean it up nice. And then you're going to flip the handle down and do the same process on the bottom. A helpful tip is to place your hand on the inside of the mug to support it while you stamp it. Then finesse it until you're happy with the final result and shape of the handle. After I attach my handles, I like to flip the mug upside down and place it on the edge of a table to cure. This just helps the handles hold their shape while they dry out a little more. After curing for a while, and the amount of time that you cure them for will depend on the weather and the moisture level in the room. Then do one final finesse of the handle. And then I place the mugs in a location where they can fully dry out, such as this wire shelf that gets tons of airflow. And there you have it. Now you know how to make really easy, consistent handles using the handheld extruder. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. If there's anything else that you guys want to learn how to do, any pottery tutorials, let me know down below in the comments. I am happy to make those videos for you. I'm going to be giving lots of love to my YouTube channel this year, so definitely drop a comment, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos, and yeah, I hope to see you guys next time.